Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited about this week's project. We are building a small deck in this little area where we have our herb garden, and for materials we're using some free lumber. A couple of weeks ago someone was getting rid of, they had taken down a handicap ramp and got rid of the lumber. I ran on down there and picked it up. What I have to do now is pull all the nails out, and I'm going to repurpose it into a deck.
Hi everyone!
Hey there!
So hopefully you can hear us over the pond and the traffic going back and forth. But we are here in our backyard. If you saw last week, we showed you a quick glimpse at the end. If you were here till the end, you could see that this little spot here, I'm not sure if you can see it well, I'll show you in a moment. But we started digging up, remember this herb garden we had put back together a couple years ago? We were fine with it, but we've decided more and more with our lifestyle, we needed a deck. So we're going to do a small deck here and maybe a small area where we'll have some mulch and we'll have some herbs growing, some plants of some kind, and then we're going to have some potted herbs, just because it's becoming a little bit of a mess.
They're really spreading, especially the oregano is really taking over. If we keep them contained in pots, I think it'll look a lot nicer and we'll have a nice place to sit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a gorgeous day. It's literally perfect temperature. What a great day to do this. This is Paul's week this week. I'm going to hope that I can do stuff at the end, but I did pull an ab muscle, if you remember from last week. It's quite painful and I cannot bend and do certain things. So it's on Paul this week, poor guy. He already had an injury already, pulling nails out of a board. So let's hope that he does all right, folks. But we're, as always, we're all about recycling. And we actually have new decking that we had gotten from someone that had like a wheelchair ramp, so it'll be shorter boards, so it won't look like a typical, you know, as you might see someone put together a deck. We thought this would be a perfect opportunity. We were just going to buy new wood and just build a new deck, and then this came along, and like I said, we like to recycle, we like to better our planet, and it was a perfect wheelchair ramp that someone used for a very short time, and they had to take it down, so it worked out for us. We benefit from it.
Pressure treated wood that's in decent shape. There's going to be more seams in the deck than we would normally get if we bought brand new wood, but you can't beat the price.
True. It was free, so that's great. So we're going to actually build out of that, and even the frame at the bottom of it, it's going to be a little shorter, because to have enough to do this, we're going to need to make it a little shorter and rip it in half. You were saying the frame.
Supports, yeah.
So because of that, it will be, but it's great. It's
We're
a free.
We're going to have to be a little creative to do it.
Yeah, and that's our specialty. That's what we love doing. We love recycling and reusing good materials. There are certain things we'd rather get brand new, but one of those kind of things like wood, we're good with that. It's pressure treated, so it worked out great. So we're going to start on that project. Well, Paul's going to, and I'm going to go rest. So thanks for joining us this week. Let's get started.
There we go.
So it is a bit of a mess because we did start pulling out the herbs. So it's not, this looked way better before, but although it was getting bushy, it was nice and lush and green, but we started pulling the herbs out, which we, if you remember from last week, we put up in our bench area on the hill, but also a lot of these we're going to be pulling out and reusing, but we're going to be putting them in pots. And I'm going to be adding some more herbs as well. Also, we have a situation that I'm hoping, Paul and I are hoping to figure out. We have this cord hanging, and we have, we have a lot going on. The hose, all of that. We're hoping to kind of get some of this mess, this clutter, and make it a little bit more streamlined and cleaned up a little bit.
Okay, so because my deck is going to be ground level, and because I have very limited 2x6s here, what I'm going to do is rip these in half, and the deck is going to be, well, just a few inches off the ground, which is fine for me. So I'm going to rip these in half, and they're all short, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to pleat them all together. It's going to be a long process, but worth it for the price. So these are going to be my supports, resting right on the ground. I'm going to butt them end to end and keep them together with another piece of wood, and that'll be the frame of my deck. Here I've got two of these 4-foot sections. Actually, they're 45 inches each. My deck's going to be about 8 foot by 8 foot. 90 inches there. We'll use these cleats to hold these together. We'll make sure it's a reasonably straight line by putting it up against these boards here, this board here, and we'll nail that together. Now, because I'm working with 48-inch boards, I have to make sure all my stringers line up with where my board's going to be. So it has to be 48 inches exactly, otherwise we're not going to line up. And also I'm going to stagger the joints, so we're going to have two 48s, and then here we're going to have a 48 in the center with two 24s. I'm going to have to make sure these are in the right spot too, with the boards that I have available. It's going to be tricky. I just have to keep my eye on the numbers. lift these bricks slightly, keep the mulching the beds a little better. My drainage ditch for my gutter runoff.
So we are doing this spot here. We're going to do a little bit of landscaping. We're going to transplant a couple of hostas, and we're going to mulch this area here. And I'm going to see if I like it like that, and maybe I'll add something else. But right now, this is what I'm going to do. I know Paul already has shown you. He planted grass seeds right here. But then we're going to have a couple of chairs here that he's going to make homemade. We could not find anything we were happy with, so he's just going to make a couple of chairs. And then we'll put a table or something here. He's also going to make a couple of planters for the end. Somewhere around here I'm going to do that. And we'll have a completed little decorated deck. So right now, let's focus on the landscaping area. Okay, so we placed our hostas in these spots, and this is where we'd like to have it. So they weren't happy over where they were in the secret garden. They're doing okay, but they're a little bit bothered by just by the weather conditions and the sunshine, and I think they rather prefer shade a bit. So these particular hostas do. So we're going to place them here and see how they do here. We'll get the shade from the apple tree, and it's a good spot where shade happens to hit certain times a day. So I think they're going to be happier here. Paul's helping me with the heavy stuff. As you know, I have an injury that I'm dealing with, so I can't do any heavy stuff. So we're going to get that planted. We're going to place some Pachysandra as well to have like be a little ground cover. In a couple years, it'll be covered in that. So it looks a little pathetic right now, but but it's going to be fabulous once it grows in. It will take 1 to 2 years to really fill up, and it won't look like this next year where it's just kind of hanging. We're doing a transplant, so it's a little kind of wonky, but it's going to be great once it really fills up and fills in. So right now we're going to mulch, and we'll show you the finished result. So far, I really like it. So Paul had to take over doing some mulching because I really am not healed yet, folks. I was hoping to be able to do it, but my abs are not in a good place. So Paul is helping. Thanks, Paul. So we have some Pachysandra and some hostas, and the mulch is in. And Paul raised the bricks a bit so it has a better edge. And then we have our deck again, and we just rinsed it down. And basically, we are going to make the furniture now, and then set it all up, and you'll see the finished product soon.
Okay, and for my next trick, I'm going to turn this pile of scrap lumber into a couple of chairs. My first thing is I've got a couple of these 2x6s, but they've been cut at an angle for the handicap ramp that they used to be. So I'm going to rip them down to the narrowest width, which is 4.5 inches. Those are going to be the front legs to my chair. Next, I'll be cutting them both in half. Well, we gotta straighten out one end first. It looks like it's cut at an angle. Make sure they're both straight. Let's make sure we cut both pieces straight first, so we know what our length is going to be. Okay, our total length is 45 1/4. I would normally like it to be a little bit longer than that, but it'll be close enough for my front legs. 22 5/8. Make sure that's right. Yes. These are my front legs for one chair and second chair. Next, I'm going to cut my back legs out of these 5/4 planks. I'm going to cut a 15-degree angle on the bottom and then again at the top, and they're going to be 36 inches long. Normally I would like to use 2x6s for this, but I didn't have any left over in my scrap pile, so it's going to be 5/4 board. And now the stringers that are going to support my seat boards are going to be 24 inches long. Now it helps me to visualize the design and the angle by actually trying to set things up in place. So leaning them up like this gives me a general idea of what it's going to look like. I'm now going to attach these stringers at about this height here, 17 inches. I have to make sure everything's pretty square as I do this. So I'm using the edge of one of these deck boards as a guideline, which helps. I really like to use deck screws for this, but I don't have enough to finish the project, so I'm going to use this assortment of nails. There's one side. Now we'll just have to reverse everything for the next side. Okay, that's what we've got so far. Now we have to put in the seat boards. It's like 20 inches wide to do it. Now I've just dry fit these in place just to give me a good idea of it. And next I'm going to cut the back to 22 1/2. Wondering if this might be a little bit deep, but I'll find out once I assemble it a little bit. Okay, so this is my rough idea for the chair. I'm now going to start attaching some of the seat boards. To discourage splitting, I'm going to pre-drill some holes into these seat boards. And for an arm support for the back of the chair, I'm going to cut one of these down to 24 inches. Then I'm going to rip it in half and use one piece for each chair. So 2 3/4 wide. Well, this one's not going to work because of the split, so I'm going to cut another piece down to that size. If I were paying more attention, I would have ripped this one in half instead. Okay, so my plan is this. I have one piece going here, and my arms, which I've not cut yet, are going to be notched out in the back here, supported with this, and supported on the front as well. And we'll attach this to the back now, the same height as this. 4 3/8. Now to cut the arms at 24 inches. You'll notice a lot of my measurements are either 24 inches or less, and that's just because my boards are 48 inches long, most of them, so I need to make as much use out of them as I can. I'm going to notch this out by 1.5 inches by 1.25 inches. Slide that back in a little bit, give a little more strength. Okay, again I'm going to pre-drill some holes. I was thinking about adding another nail over here going through there, but I don't think I need it. I don't think it'll give me any extra strength. Give me a better angle. I'm going to nail these down towards the deck. There we are, folks. I'm going to round off these corners a little bit, but right now that's pretty darn good. I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty solid. The price was right. It was all scrap lumber I had on hand. Right now it's time for supper, so I'm going to go and finish this up later. Alright, now we just got to sand them and paint them. I think that's a job for tomorrow. One more thing before I pack it in for the night. We put this stepping stone here because we know we're going to be taking the shortcut to the deck from over here in the grass. But unfortunately, it's too long of a step here to get from this stepping stone over to here. So I'm going to add one right here, right at the brick edge. We're going to put a stepping stone right about here. That way, we're not messing up the grass on the edge, and we have a nice walking area.
Okay, so it's the next day. We had an episode last night where I was starting to stain the deck. It started to get really gray out of nowhere. We finally got the color we wanted. It was a cedar color from Olympic Stain. I was going for budget. Unfortunately, it doesn't do very well in getting into the wood, and also it was just an orangey color. I didn't like it at all. So what I decided to do was put a little brown paint. That wasn't quite doing it, so I put a little black paint in it. This is an experiment. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to do with paint, but I'm going to try it out, and I'm going to see how long it lasts. So a couple things. It started to rain, so I had to stop. We had to throw like a big umbrella over it, and then I had to put a tarp over it with some bricks around it because a lot of these areas weren't done yet. Oh my gosh, what a disaster. Anyway, so it's the next day. I've given it a little time where it's still a little bit damp in some areas, but we're okay. I think I'm going to start, and hopefully it works. But what I did notice is, and some of it, I'm going to try to move this closer. Sorry about the shakiness of the camera, folks. I don't know if you can see. There's some parts bleeding through. I'm not really sure what's happening. So I'm going to try to cover that the best I can. If it doesn't work out, we might have to sand it down and try something else. But for now, we're going to continue and see what happens. So part 2 of staining the deck. I was going to try a second layer on top, and it just doesn't seem to be permeating through. So I think we may have to, when it dries, I may have to sand it and start again. But we're going to keep going. For those of you who have been watching, I had an injury a couple weeks ago, and I've been doing physical therapy, which has been helping tremendously. But if you see me move awkwardly on camera, it's because I have this, I'm kind of working through it, pushing through it, but I do really have to be careful because I notice certain days when I'm super active physically and doing projects, I do notice there's quite a pain around my belly button and also in my lower back. My back's been doing better, but still that pull in the abs sometimes, even simple movements we take for granted. So if you see me move awkwardly, that's why. And like I said, I'm just going over some spots that didn't seem to take very well. I'm not sure how it's going to do. Might have to re-sand those spots. Now I don't mind a little character to these pieces of wood sometimes, but when it's bleeding through like that, it doesn't seem to be working, folks. So we're going to keep plugging away, but those spots I'm definitely going to do something about. But we have to keep in mind that this was a recycled wood project, so there's going to be things like that. And I may or may not be able to fix it. I'm going to just have to deal with it maybe, or I'm going to try to figure out which. I'm going to always try to figure a solution.
One of the problems in our yard is that we don't have any outdoor electrical except for this outlet in the backyard and one in the front. So I've got extension cords running to different things, which is kind of sketchy. And I don't like it, but eventually we'll have things hardwired out here. But for now, this is what we have to deal with. So I'm going to try to wrangle this in and make it look a little bit better at the very least. So I've got these scraps of pressure treated wood from a previous project. I'm going to try to make a little, kind of like a little box that can fit in with a little overhanging roof. Hopefully that'll help contain it a little bit better. Let's see how it comes out.
So I have this glass vase that was given to me by my mom. She was getting rid of it. It's not my favorite. It's kind of an ugly, cheapy vase. Sorry, Mom. But anyway, it's one of those things that it's solid. It's a good vase, and I want to have it outside to put some hydrangeas in and let them dry out. So what do? So I'm going to spray paint. What I had on hand, I'm not sure because it's gloss. I don't know how it'll be, but I have this Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover 2X. It's a gloss white. I'm going to see if that does well on this and try to get it so it looks maybe a little bit better. So let's do that. We'll let that dry for a bit. It came out kind of nice. I like it. It's hard to see probably in the camera. I think it's gonna, you'll see it when it's finished for sure and when it's set up, but I really like it. It was a clear glass. Just know that don't always look at the finish of something or, gee, maybe it looks a little ugly. You can always fix it with paint, some kind of, even a clay or something on it just to kind of spruce it up. I've decided on the white. I think it'll look really pretty with some of our hydrangeas on site that we have growing in our garden. I think it'll look really pretty, and I'll allow them to dry out.
I'm going to cut these 3 down to 11 inches. My roof is going to be 5 inches. Very simple construction. I'm just going to drill some pilot holes and put some nails in there. I'm thinking something like this, which at least makes it look more purposeful and keeps it contained a little better. I'm going to put some screws in to mount this on, and we're going to paint this the color of the house, or at least something close to it. So when I spray painted this with a navy blue, the color is still too far off of the regular house color, so I'm just going to brush paint it with the house color once I get it attached. Now, because these washers keep getting pushed in, I'm going to have to take the screws all the way out.
With some of our transplants here, I'm going to put them in the pot. This was a green pot that we just sprayed white. I think it'll go better. Honestly, if I had black spray paint or even a blue that got close to the house, I probably would have done it in that, but I actually think it's going to work out nicely with the white. And we do have white elements around, so it should be fine. And this is our oregano. I like it because it cascades, so it'll swoop down. And who doesn't love oregano? It smells really good, and I really like it. Still can't do a lot of lifting yet, so my husband's kind enough to hand me some things here and anything that I need here, because it's very hard to lift, and I go to do it every time and I forget and go, oh yeah, and then it hurts. All right, it's going to look a little wonky and not so great right now, but thank you. But it's going to look a little crazy right now, but I think it's still enough time in the year where I think it'll grow back and do okay. But trimming it helps, although it doesn't make it look so very nice when you trim it sometimes. And there's a lot of dead stems because we do harvest off and on too. So it just maybe doesn't look so great now that we're transplanting it. But I would imagine in a few weeks it'll start coming back again. It'll look nice. I'm not sure if I want it to cascade, so it looks like, ooh, that looks weird, but I kind of do too for that look. But I think we'll see how the week progresses, and I might trim it more. But for now, just want to get the idea of what it's going to look like. Paul's going to lift it for me. Okay, so it looks a little bit meh right now, but I think it's going to be great as the weeks progress. Look at this gorgeous sage plant that we have. We're transplanting it. It's doing beautifully, sort of.
It was crowded out in there though.
Yeah.
For all the other vegetables.
It was.
That's enormous.
It is so huge.
We couldn't even see how big it was in there because it was crowded by everything else.
And we've used it. We've actually used it for something. For some things in our meals and whatnot. But oh my God, it didn't even figure out like how big it was. But also something might be getting to it, so it's kind of time to move it because I don't want it to be destroyed. I'm going to clip off some dead leaves where they're graying and wilting, and some that have little holes in them that something got to it. Something's eating it. So the thing is with this, they're going to find it anyway if it's an insect, so no matter where we move it. But it may take a little while for them to find it, and also it'll make it a little healthier to take it out anyway because it is getting crowded out by other plants. Hi everyone!
Hey there.
What a week!
What a week. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so a couple things. You know I've been having this injury, but I have to admit this wasn't so bad. Paul did the real hard work. I had a couple of little moments of like, ooh, I'm still little tinges of pain, but it was so good to do this. So good to get back into physical work, and I really enjoyed it, and I was being very careful. We have been wanting this project for a little while now. More me than Paul. Paul is kind of a new project, but for me, I've been wanting this for a while. I've been envisioning this for a long time. I am so excited how it all came together. So, I mean, it was just kismet. I mean, everything just kind of fell into place.
Yes.
It was one of those really lucky things that we fell into.
Yeah.
So weeks ago, I saw something on Facebook Marketplace And what do you say, maybe over a month ago, we had talked about doing this?
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, it was on Facebook Marketplace. We had budgeted for wood, and we had thought, okay, it's going to be not bad. It wasn't going to be bad. It was under $200, right?
It was almost $200. It would have been to make the deck alone.
Which is not bad.
Right. Yeah, it's an 8x8 deck.
But for Paul and I, especially this guy, it's a challenge.
I'm very frugal, and
Yes.
also I can't resist the word free. So somebody taking down a handicap ramp, and they had done all the work. The nails were still in the boards, but they did all the work. The boards were only 4 feet long. We don't have a truck, so if the boards were 8 feet long, it would have been a hassle.
Yeah, so really everything fell
Everything
into
worked
place.
out. I fit it all in the car.
Yes. So we had the frame, we had so we had to have it lower to the ground, which honestly, I don't know how you feel, Paul, but honestly, I like it lower to the ground.
Yeah.
For this spot here. We are going to extend it later, probably next year on the other side.
Right.
We have to rotate our gardens. We'll talk about that next week, but we have a plan for that, a really exciting thing for next year. But that'll be bigger,
Right.
Taller, I should say. But this was like, we wanted it to be low. It was super exciting. I was rip-raring to go.
We really want to clean up this area. It was originally an herb garden, and it just became an oregano mess, because our oregano grows very aggressively,
Yeah.
and it just kind of spread everywhere, and it looked it all got floppy.
Oregano can be kind of a bully. I love oregano, but oh
Yes.
my gosh, it's very aggressive. It takes over, and it really kind of choked out a lot of the herbs. A lot of other herbs that we had bought and planted here are just gone.
They didn't make it, yeah.
They've disappeared. We have a creeping thyme that by now it should have been spreading. It's really small because it was being kind of hidden by everything. And you know, we had over to Paul's side here, if you can see it, there's a marshmallow plant here. Marshmallow root, maybe?
I forget what it's called.
It's a great plant. It looks really pretty. It has a really nice smell to it, kind of marshmallowy. I really love it. Unfortunately, it was just getting kind of grown over so much, and lanky, yeah. And again, that oregano was taking over. We had a lot of different things going on here, and it was just messy.
It looked really messy, and we couldn't really use the space like we wanted to.
Yeah.
So as soon as you mentioned the deck idea, I thought, wow, that's brilliant. And
Yay.
then maybe a week or two later is when you found the free lumber on Facebook Marketplace.
I scope it out like a Black Friday sale. I'm like on it every single early morning.
You had to get the great deals like that. So I rushed out there. I was the first one to get there, and got the wood. We got this. We got enough to make these chairs as well.
From that same wood.
From that same wood, and I have a little bit left over for my next project. So.
And I have to say, I love these chairs. They're super comfortable. They're a nice size.
They work out well.
They're really nice looking. I really
easy
like
to put together too.
I mean, they really were. I mean, it seemed anyway.
Yeah.
But even to paint them, to sand them down and paint them, it's great. Then we found these guys also on Facebook Marketplace. There's supposed to be a cushion with it. They weren't with it, and honestly, I'm not a fan of taking other people's cushions. You can clean them well, and it depends on how they look and how I feel about it. If someone says, oh, I just bought them and they look really pristine, sometimes I've seen things still in packages, like still in the plastic, then I would consider it.
Right.
But otherwise, I'm not a fan of taking on someone's cushions. So we will eventually put cushions. If you see these little pulleys here, the cushion attaches to it. I'm okay with it just how it is. It looks really cool, and not even on purpose, but
They
it's
slide
just
right under the chair when we're not using them.
Yes.
And if you're not using them for an ottoman, they can be a chair for somebody.
an extra
Just like
seating.
seating,
Yes.
So,
So
very cool.
for us, where we live on a small, as you know, if you've been here with us since the beginning, you know, we have a very small we have a good property, but small flat land.
Right.
And we have a lot of hill. So we utilize everything we can, and we love it. But you really have to be careful and cautious about storage and space.
Yeah.
You need space-saving things here. In our home, it's a whole other issue, but outside, you can be really clever, even with a small plot of land. So I think all in all, we own about
a third of an acre.
about a third of an acre. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you look, I mean, it is quite expansive. It's crazy to me how, when I think of numbers, I think it has to be more than that. But it really is a decent amount of space for us. And how we live our lives, having that hill is really lovely. But here, down here in the flat part of land, we really need space-saving solutions. We have a lot of gatherings, and you think, how could they possibly fit all these people? You know, we somehow did it, but now even more so it's going to happen. So we're creating these little rooms, these outdoor rooms everywhere, and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. Do you want to talk about some of the other things we did, or?
Let's see. Well, we touched up the paint on some of the things back here. This kind of thing, neaten things up with the electric cords, everything. We kind of tidied up a bit.
And you came up with a creative solution here.
Yeah, just a little, a nice little thing to straighten it out a bit. It looked really messy. It was bothering me for quite a while. I just never got around to addressing it. So.
There were some unsightly cords around, and
eventually everything's going to be hardwired back here. But until that point, we're keeping things a little bit neater with our cords.
And in the meantime, while we have cords, folks, we are very, very cautious with our cords. We have very heavy-duty cords that are meant for outdoors. So to us, it's worth spending $50 on an extension cord or something. It's really, or certain plug units. It's definitely worth that because we really want to be safe. We don't want a fire hazard. We don't want any trouble. So we go a little bit above and beyond of that. But that was a long time ago we did that. This project,
I'm very happy with it, how it came out. The only thing we purchased for this was a gallon of stain, and we didn't even need to do that. Like, if you wanted to do this project for free, it could have been free, but we got the stain.
We had to buy stain.
We had to buy the stain. We adjusted the color a little bit. You adjusted the color a little bit of the stain.
Yes,
which came out very well. I really like what you came up with.
Thank you. It was Olympic. It's okay. It's not my favorite brand, but Olympic had like 2 options, and one of them was cedar, and I thought, okay, that's close enough. Paul was in the store. I wasn't with him, and I said, sure, let's try it. It was he doesn't know what it was going to look like on the wood either, so we kind of took a chance. I like cedar. Maybe it'll be okay. It was kind of orangey, and it looked almost like it already did.
Yeah, it didn't change the color of the wood very much.
Except it made it a little orangey.
Yeah.
So to me, that was like, okay, we got to fix this. So our solution is, we don't know how it'll hold up through time. We're not the experts in this. This is just how we do it. We put in black and brown. We had a brown floor paint, and we had an exterior black paint, and we put them together, and we kept putting it in until we felt like it was the color we wanted. And then and it's, you know, watery. It's stained. So it still stayed that way. It didn't thicken it or do anything strange to it. It just added a different.
All it took was a little bit.
Yeah.
And it really, pieced up the color really nice.
I think it went on really well. If you don't want, if it starts to come out like a paint, you can just wipe it in, and it soaks into the wood.
Right.
And so we had that. We had our sage and our other transplants from our garden.
Yeah.
Our hanging oregano here and our marshmallow root, and these beauties were from our property, and we had painted this to change it up.
We had a really great time doing the project. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you do enjoy it, give us a little thumbs up. Appreciate it.
And subscribe if you could. Did you already say that?
I didn't say subscribe.
Okay. And subscribe, please. Thank you so much for all of you who've been here since the beginning, and for all you newbies, thanks so much for joining our channel. Welcome. It's really nice to have you here. Sure. And every now and then I get distracted because there's like some hawks that fly.
Oh, yeah.
And crows, and so if you see my eyes look up, sorry about that. I'm not rolling my eyes at Paul, although that does happen occasionally.
Aren't you?
But I'm looking up at those crows. It's kind of cool.
They're distracting sometimes.
They are. Anyway, great work, dear. This is a beautiful space. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you. Me too.
Tell us what you think. Have a great day, folks.